Hello students, welcome to class 10 social science class, and today we will be discussing on agriculture, that is your chapter 7, okay? Agriculture chapter 7. You can turn to page 88, okay? So class 10 social science chapter 7 agriculture. So if you are ready, let's go into it, okay? Now, when we talk about agriculture, okay, agriculture, this is the process. Agriculture is the process of producing food, okay, it is the process of producing food, and we all know that this agriculture, okay, it is closely linked, okay, it is closely linked with human history, okay, because if you go back to ancient period, or we can say the early man, okay, we have discussed all these in your lower classes. So when we talk about the early man, we all know that the early man, okay, in the beginning they used to move from one place to another place. They led a nomadic life, and the reason why they led a nomadic life was in search of food, okay. They were moving from one place to another place in search of food. But then we have also discussed that later on they came to discover agriculture, isn't it? And once they discovered agriculture, what happened was they started leading a settled life, okay. So this is the reason why we say agriculture is closely linked with human history, okay. Then apart from this, you will also know that agriculture, this is the oldest human activity, okay. It is one of the oldest human activity, and it was also agriculture that brought men out of the forest, so to say, because in the beginning they were living in the forest, moving here and there in search of food. But with the discovery of agriculture, now they started leading a settled life, okay. So that is also to do with that. Then another thing is, in this chapter, okay, in this chapter we are going to focus mainly on India, okay. What are the different types of agriculture that are practiced by the Indians? So in this chapter we will be focusing mainly on the Indians, okay. Now coming to the topic, when we talk about agriculture, okay, agriculture also, as I've said, it has different types of agriculture, and all these different types, they again depend on two factors, okay. The agriculture, it depends on two factors. One is called as the physical, okay, one is called as physical, and the other one is called as the human factor. Everything is written in your textbook, so I hope you are keeping up with that, okay. So there are two factors that determine agriculture. One is called as the physical, okay. Now here, when I say physical, we are talking about the climate, okay. It will be to do with the climate, then the location of the field or the location of the area. Then it will also depend on the relief, okay. So physical means we are talking about relief, location, and the climate, okay. So this comprises physical, and they are the factor of agriculture. Then the second factor is, it is also called as human factor, okay. The second factor is human. Now when we say human, here we are talking about the cultural background of the people. Like nowadays we do, if you talk about Nagaland, okay, in Nagaland we focus mainly on terrace cultivation. Now why terrace cultivation? Because from the beginning our forefathers, they have been practicing that, isn't it? They have been practicing terrace cultivation, then this June cultivation. So because of that, now also we still practice that, okay. So that is what we meant by background, okay. Then another one is availability of irrigation, whether they will be able, okay, whether the farmers will be able to get irrigation or not, or the different types. It can be to do irrigation means we are talking about the manures, fertilizers, and so on. So whether those are available for the farmers, okay, that is also another point. Then the third one is agricultural practices. So this comprises the human factor, okay. So as I've said, agriculture depends on two factors. One is called physical. In physical, we have the relief, the climate, and the location. Then the second factor is human, and here human, we are talking about the background, okay, cultural background of the people, or whether irrigation, they will be able to get irrigation or not, all those fertilizers and so on. And then we also have this agricultural practices. So those are the two factors on which agriculture depends on, okay. Now let's go into the different types of agriculture, okay. Agriculture also, it has different types depending on this, as I've said, the physical and the human factor, okay, regarding the location, the climate, or the practices of the people and so on. So if you go into it, you will find that we have three, okay, there are three different types of farming, okay, three different types of farming. Now the first one is, okay, we will call it as, or in your textbook it is written as primitive, okay. The first farming is called as the primitive. Now when we say primitive, okay, primitive means something to do with old fashioned, that was practiced long time back, okay. Now one thing I want you to be clear is, in your textbook it is written as primitive, but this primitive, okay, it is also known by other name, okay, and that is, it can be called as primitive, or it can also be called as, we call it as slash and burn, okay, slash and burn, or it can also be called as the doom cultivation, okay. So the first farming is, we call it as primitive, but primitive also, it can be called as primitive, it can also be called as the slash and burn, or it can also be called as the doom cultivation, okay. Now this primitive cultivation, or this primitive farming, I'm sure you remember we have already discussed this, okay, in your Nagaland portion, okay, in your Nagaland book, you have already discussed about this, that is agriculture in Nagaland, and there you have discussed about the doom cultivation and the terrace cultivation. So I'm sure you have a little bit knowledge about this primitive, okay. So when we come to primitive farming, here what the farmers does is, they will select a place, okay, site will be selected, and mainly it will be on the slope, okay, on the slope of the mountain. And here the first thing they will do is, they will cut down the trees, okay, the trees, the shrub, all these will be cut down, and the trees, they will be kept there, lying there for some days. And the reason why they are keeping it there for a few days is, or it can be months also, the point is so that the leaves or the trees, they will dry up, okay. And once it dried up, what they do is, they will set fire to it. Now the reason why they take all these processes, because they believe that these will give more manure to the soil, okay. So the trees will be cut down, it will be lying there for some months. After it had dried up, they will set fire to it, okay, and this is to make the soil more fertile. And after it has been burned, they will clear up all the debris, and the soil itself, it is very soft. And so what they do is, they will just start spreading out the, or giving out the grains, and this is how they do it in the slash and burn farming, or doom cultivation, or primitive, okay. So as I've said, names are different, but it means the same thing, but questions may come in different forms, so be aware of that, okay. So this is how they do the primitive farming, okay. And in this primitive farming, what the farmers cultivate is, they usually cultivate cereal and other food crops, and then apart from all these food crops, on the side, okay, of the field, they will also grow all those pumpkins, cucumbers, okay, corn and whatnot. So all these are practiced in the primitive farming, okay. So that is the first type of farming, okay. Then the second one is, we call it as intensive, okay, intensive subsistence, intensive subsistence farming. Subsistence means where the farmer, okay, where the farmer is cultivating the crops only for his own subsistence, that is only for himself or for his own family, not for selling, okay. So intensive subsistence farming, here also the field will be small, okay, and many a times these are related to this terrace cultivation. Okay, if the area is on the slope, then what they will do is they will cut it into steps. Okay, and that is called as the terrace cultivation, and this is how they cultivate their crops. Okay, but this terrace cultivation or this subsistence intensive farming, here the fields, holding means we are talking about field. Okay, in your textbook it is written as holding, so holding means field. Okay, so their field will be small. Okay, it is small because they are doing it only for themselves, that is for their own family. Okay, and here in this type of farming, what the farmers usually grow is they grow paddy, sugarcane, soya bean, okay, wheat, and so on. So that is to do with the second farming, which is called as the intensive subsistence farming. Okay, then coming to the third one. The third one, we call it as commercial. Okay, commercial farming. Now, commercial farming, this is to do with a situation where the farmer, okay, the farmer is cultivating his field in order to sell it, okay, in order to sell it. So that means the farmer, he will be cultivating cash crops. Okay, cash crops means I'm not talking about money trees or money crops. Okay, here what we meant is, okay, cash crops means those crops that the farmers are cultivating in order to sell it, in order to get money in return. Okay, so those are called as cash crops. Okay, so here in the commercial farming, all the food commodities, okay, all the everything that the farmers does, that is to do with selling it or to sell it in the market. Okay, and here what the farmers will be doing is the field. Okay, the field itself, it will be very big. Okay, the field will be very big because they will be needing a big area in order to produce more food so that they can sell it in the market. Okay, so the field will be very big, and then on top of that, the farmers, they will be using all the different types of fertilizers. Okay, fertilizers, manures, even to do with better seeds. Okay, everything to do with the modern technology. So all these will be used by the farmers. Okay, then this cultivation of cash crops for the export market, then they will also use migrant labors. Okay, that is the farmers, they will be using, or the owner, he will be using lots of labors, that is migrant labors. Migrant means someone who have migrated to another place, isn't it? So in the commercial farming, the field will be very big, and so since the field is big, they need lots of labors, and so in this situation, the owner, he will be hiring, okay, lots of immigrant labors, and all this here, everything that is produced there, that is called as the cash crops. Okay, because they are going to sell it in the market in order to get money in return. Okay, and here commercial farming, in this type of farming, what they usually grow is, okay, they will be growing wheat, rice, tea, coffee, okay, sugarcane, rubber, and so on. All these are called as cash crop. Okay, because as I've said, the farmers, they are producing it or cultivating it in order to sell it in the market. So here, agriculture, we have three types of farming. One is called as the primitive farming, primitive, slash and burn, or zoom cultivation. Okay, then the second one is, we call it as intensive farming. Then the third one is, we call it as the commercial farming. So these are the three farmings that are practiced in agriculture, and here, as I've said before, we are focusing mainly on India. Okay, now coming to the next topic. Okay, coming to the next topic, you can turn to page 90. Here again, what happened is regarding the cropping season. Okay, regarding this will be to do with the cropping season, and regarding this cropping season in India. Okay, India, they have three cropping season. Okay, in India we have three cropping season. Okay, so here what will happen, the three types are, first one is, we call it as Rabi. Okay, everything is there in your textbook, so please go to your textbook. So the three cropping patterns are, first one is we call it as the Rabi, okay? The second one we call it as Kharif, and the third one it is called as the Zaid, okay? So these are the three cropping season. Now regarding these Rabi, okay? Rabi crops, these are sown in October to November, okay? Within those 2 months, October to November, the Rabi crops are sown and they will again be harvested in April and June, okay? So regarding the Rabi crops, they are grown in October to November and they are harvested in April to June. And those crops are, okay, wheat, barley, gram, mustard, peas, and so on. So all these are called as Rabi crops, okay? Then the second one, we call it as the Kharif, okay? Now regarding these Kharif crops, these crops, they are sown during June, in June, okay? In June, these Kharif crops will be sown and again they will be harvested in September to October, okay? So first in June, they will sow the crops and they will harvest it again in September to October, okay? And this Kharif crops, those are paddy, maize, jowar, okay, bajra, and so on. Everything is written clearly in the textbook, okay? I'm going to go into the textbook. So your job is make sure you read your textbook as always, okay? So that is to do with the Kharif. Then the third one is, we call it as Zaid, okay? Now this Zaid crops, or this is a short cropping season, and this Zaid cropping season it is grown in the middle, okay, during the middle of Rabi and Kharif, okay. So I hope that's clear. This is a short season between the Rabi and Kharif season, okay. So here what they again do is they will be sown and harvested in between the Rabi and Kharif season. Then those crops that are cultivated we have in your textbook, it is written as watermelon, okay, musk, melon, cucumber, vegetables, and other crops. So that is to do with Zaid, okay. So there are three cropping season. One is called as Rabi, the second one is Kharif, the third one is Zaid. Then regarding the Rabi crops, these are sown in October to November and harvested in April to June. Then talking about these Kharif crops, those are again sown in June and harvested in September and October, okay? Then the third one is Zaid, and this is a short cropping season. And regarding these crops, okay, these are sown and harvested in between the Rabi and Kharif crop. So that is to do with the three cropping season, okay? So I hope you have understood that far. Now, the next topic will be, we call it as the technological and so on, okay? Now, but before we go into that, what happened here is, okay, after India got her independence, okay, after India got her independence, the Indian government, they realized that there were many factors, okay, there were many factors affecting the agriculture. Because when you look at agriculture, okay, agriculture is considered as the backbone of India's economy, okay, because two-thirds of India's population, they practice agriculture. And we can say India is also an agricultural country. So because of all this, the Indian government, they decided that something needs to be done so that they will be able to get, that is the farmers, okay, they will be able to get more food, because two-thirds of India's population, they practice agriculture. So by any means, they need to get more. Otherwise, they will not be able to survive. And then we all know about the population problem also, right? The Indian population problem. So because of all these issues, the Indian government, they have come up with lots of reforms, okay? But those reforms, we will be taking it or discussing about it in the next session. So please make sure you join me again in the next session, okay? Thank you for tuning in and stay safe.